Hey everybody, welcome back to Row Country. Thanks for joining me to see how I put together my Spring 2020 Country Farmhouse Gnome. We are going to start by recycling this bottle. It is, I think, 48 ounces. Also, I'm going to use some scrap fabric. This is burlap. Also, I picked up a fat quarter and some of this felt from, I believe it was Walmart. Yeah. Okay. And we're going to use this headband as well as this headband from the Dollar Tree. Now this comes straight. I went ahead and just did the braiding so it would be faster for me. Also these socks from the Dollar Tree. These are kids socks in a pack of 3. Aren't these adorable baby booties, guys? We're going to use the insides of those. We also need these kidney beans. This is 1 pound bag. We're going to need some of these stones from the floral section at the Dollar Tree. Now from the health and beauty section, pick up a pack of curlers. These are rod curlers. I think they come in 6 packs for $1. My favorite glue gun and glue sticks. Also, we're going to need some beads. You only need 1 for the nose. Pick whatever size and from wherever you want to get that. Also, some Waverly chalk paint in the color white. I'm using these finger protectors. They will come in handy later, as you will see. And also these little craft scissors from the Dollar Tree. These florals from the Dollar Tree. I only use 1 bunch. Also, this Waverly chalk paint, the color is ink or black from Walmart, and then that little sponge brush from the Dollar Tree. Also, I picked up from the Dollar Tree this favor set. These are these really cute small metal buckets, and we're going to use 1 of those today. And then finally, 1 of these wooden stakes, and also, sorry guys, these stickers from the Dollar Tree. I'll have everything in the description box below so you can see everything that we're going to be using. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove this plastic covering on this bottle. Now this is optional, you don't have to. I just felt like for the type of fabric I was going to use, that would be best. And as I've done in the past, I am also going to take some hot glue and drop some down into this little indentation, and then drop in a nice size stone, and then I'm just going to fill around it with some hot glue. What that's going to do is it's going to do a couple things. It's going to give you some weight on this bottle, which will help it to stand upright all the time. The other part that it's going to take care of is where the shoes for this little gnome is going to go. This gives you 1 solid flat piece all the way across. So do your best if you're using this particular bottle. I do recommend that you go ahead and add a little bit of weight and then some hot glue to sort of get everything nice and even. Now remember, I said we're going to use these cute little booties, but we're not going to use the booties themselves. We're going to use this plastic insert that you see right here. And as I've done before, we are going to add some weight to these too, because this needs to support the body of the gnome and allow it to stand upright. And so how I address this is I start out with some of these stones, and I go ahead and drop some hot glue down into there, and then I fill it up with the stones and continue with the hot glue. What I like to do first is just do a dry fitting just to see how it's going to fit in there. We don't want it to come up above that edge right there. We do want the stones to be sitting down inside. So I do a dry fit. Then I take them out, and then 1 by 1 I add in some hot glue, and then I add a stone, and I continue to go until it gets completely filled with the hot glue and the stones, which gives us a nice base for our gnome to stand on. So once you've completed your layering, you're going to have something like this. This is when the hot glue has cured, it has filled the little booty itself, and it gives us a nice bit of weight. Here's both of those. Of course, you want to do both. Now, the next thing we're going to do is add some more weight to the body, and I use a 1 pound bag of beans. You could use 2 pounds if you wanted to. This is what you get with 1 pound for this particular size bottle. It is perfect for my needs, so I don't use more than 1. And I just go ahead and put the lid back on top and screw that down. And now we have the beginning of the base of our gnome body, just like that. So now that that's filled, we are going to take one of the 2-pack of women's socks, and I'm just going to turn it inside out onto my hand so that I can grab the actual bottle with my hand and then bring the sock up over the gnome's body. Now this is going to serve as, you know, the clothing for our gnome, or at least the base of the gnome's clothing. Because I do country farmhouse, I have to add some twine and some burlap every time I do a little decor. And so of course this gnome is going to be wearing some burlap, but I am using an open weave burlap, as you can see here, and I did want the purple to be showing through, so this is intentional here. And what I'm going to do at this point is we're going to wrap the burlap around the body of the gnome along the edge of the bottle, and we're just going to wrap it around one time. We're going to cut some off right here. I'm going to leave a little bit of the overlap so that I can turn it over and then have sort of a nice seam. But those little tiny scissors I picked up at the Dollar Tree, and I have to tell you guys, I love them. Even though they're very little, they really work very well. And so I'm just going to start by putting on one of those little finger protectors because we don't want to burn ourselves, and I'm going to use that to sort of pat down the hot glue as I wrap the burlap around the body of this gnome. So as you can see here, we did a nice little fold over, and I'm just going to finish that off with a little bit of hot glue there, and that's really the base now of the body of this gnome. But we need to work out the placement now for the arms, and so the seam of course is going to be on the back of the body of the gnome, but this is sort of where I want the arms to go. So we're going to just roll the sock down and then start to put these arms into place. And so for me, this is really an eyeball measurement. I'm not really measuring at all. I'm just sort of figuring out where I want these arms to go, and I'm using my scissors to poke a hole into this plastic bottle. Now these little curlers or curling rods, they have a plastic piece on the end, and my goal is to get a hole large enough in the side of this bottle in order to be able to sort of snap that white plastic piece at the end of the curling rod into the bottle, and you'll see here in a moment how that works out. So I just start the hole with my scissors, and then I take them and sort of snip around that hole. You want to be super careful so that you don't, you know, poke yourself or you know, get caught on any part or little piece of plastic that might be in this hole as you're moving it around. And as I sort of put the piece in, it finally hooks in, just as you can see right there. So that is the goal. You want a hole large enough that that plastic piece right there will fit inside the hole, and that will be how the arm is attached. Later on, as I come around to the other side, we'll go ahead and put some hot glue there on that piece, and that's going to allow it to stay in place and yet still allow us to be able to maneuver these arms for this gnome. So now that we have the arms attached, we are going to use those polka dot socks to cover the arms. But the first thing we want to do is get the rest of the clothing up over the body or the arms of this gnome. And so what I'm doing is sort of bringing my fingers up to just underneath what would be the armpit of this gnome. And I'm just going to cut a small slit, just large enough that I can kind of poke my finger through and then pull the actual rod or arm of the gnome back through, sort of like that. Now I'm starting first on what is, I believe, the left-hand side, and I'm just making adjustments as I go. Now you don't want a big gaping hole here. It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you're not going to see this under part of where we're cutting, but try to keep it so that it's large enough to maneuver the arm through, but it's not so large that you have a gaping hole on the side of the gnome's body. So as you can see there, we just sort of pushed it back through. What's really nice about these rods is that they do have metal inside, and they are very bendable and flexible, as you can see there. So as I said, we're going to use these polka dot socks, and I'm just going to cut them literally down the middle of these socks so that we can use these to cover the arms. And I'm cutting them down the middle so that you can see here, there where the toe of the sock was, that's going to sort of be the area that we cover the hand with, or what would be the gnome's hand. So we'll cut those in half, and then we'll lay that down just sort of in that manner, and we're going to use hot glue. And we're going to start on the very tip, or the end of that rod, on the white plastic piece, and fold the sock over it. And then we're going to turn the gnome upside down and start folding the sock in. And of course, we're going to do this for both arms. We want the polka dots to be the sleeves and to cover the hands of this gnome. Okay, so now that the arms are covered, we do need to snip away the remainder of this piece of sock. It is just a little bit too long for the gnome's arm, and so we're just going to snip it off and finish it off with some hot glue as close to the purple sock that is over the body, and we sort of want it in this manner. Now remember, these arms, they are bendable and twistable. You want to make sure that you don't have any sock hanging down, any of that purple polka dots. You don't want that hanging down. Now we're going to work on the shoes, and if you have seen any of my other videos, and I will have those linked below, I always just used a child's sock or a baby sock to cover these. However, I could not find something that was perfect to go with this gnome. And what I did find is in a larger child size. So we actually have to do a little bit of customization on this. And so what I did is I cut the heel off that second polka dot sock, and I am cutting around the sock in the way that it was actually pressed down. So there's already a perfect line for me to follow, and I'm going around the toe part of it, and when I'm done, I'm going to have two sides to this sock completely. Now one is going to have some stitching on the end and one is not, but it really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day we aren't going to worry about that. What we're going to do is we're going to start on one of the feet for this gnome. We're going to start on the toe area, and we're going to put down some hot glue. And again, I really recommend these finger protectors, especially for this, and if not, please use something to cover and protect your fingers, because this can get hot. Now I'm going to take some hot glue up the front of this gnome's foot, and I'm going to pat down the sock until I get a nice fitted look to it. Now I'm going to come off to the side. I'm on the left hand side, coming down but not quite all the way from the back of the foot, and we're going to bring some hot glue and then again pat it down so that we have a nice good fit on that, and then we'll turn it around and do the right. There is a method to my madness here, guys, so just stick with me. This is really going to show you how that's going to end up. Now we want to cover the very top of the foot. So we've got everything nice and tight. Now we're going to sort of roll our finger over and get a good tight fit against that part of the foot, which is the top, and that's going to be the part that sticks up underneath the gnome. And now we're going to fold that sock back, and we're starting to pull back towards the back of the sock now, or the foot. Now the way that I do it, I like to have two little pleats on the ends so that they sort of fold over each other in the back, and you'll see the detail of that here in a moment. But that's how I do it. And the reason I do it like that is because, one, you're really not going to be looking at the back very much, and two, it gives the front of your foot a very nice look. And so that's what I do. Now, once I've got everything in place, I go ahead and trim around the foot so that we can finish that off. And again, guys, you want to do this for both feet. Now, once we have the foot covered and we have everything glued down, we're going to take some hot glue and we're going to cover the bottom of that foot, and we're going to stick it right down on top of the felt there. And that's going to allow your gnome to stand anywhere in your home and not scratch any of the surface or even get stuck, because that hot glue can create sort of a situation where if you try to move it or slide it, it won't do that because it is that hot glue. So you did both feet and then you glued them down to the felt. And now you're going to take those scissors again and you're going to trim all the way around the foot of this gnome so that we have a nice, pretty purple bottom to these feet. Okay, so now that we have the felt trimmed around the bottom, we need to finish this off because, of course, you can see, the difference between the sock and the felt itself. So I'm going to use this really pretty ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to start towards the back of the foot on this gnome, and I'm going to bring that all the way around. I'm going to let that hang, below the edge of that foot just a little bit, just to give it a little detail, but not so much that it's going to be bunched up when we have the foot down. So guys, I went ahead and painted one of those little wooden beads so that I can add a nose to our gnome, and that's going to be coming up here very soon. But the next thing that we need to do is we need to deal with, that's right, it's a girl, guys, and she has braided hair, and we need to add that to her. Much like the male gnomes that I make, this set of braids are going to go around the nose of this gnome. And so I went ahead and I braided this ahead of time so that it would save a little bit of time, but you want to braid yours. And then I'm putting hot glue down right below where I'm going to cut this hair away from this headband so that it doesn't all fray and go into, different places, and it's hard to deal with. And so I'm just going to bring the first braid over from the shoulder a little bit and in towards what would be the midline of this gnome, or where the center would be and where the nose is probably going to go. And I'm going to do that on the left hand and also on the right hand side. So bring some hot glue in from the shoulder area and then bring it straight across and then let it sort of drape down the rest of the body. Okay, so once we get those braids into place, the next thing we want to do is flip our gnome over, and we're going to place the feet into place on this gnome. And so they're going to sort of go in this manner underneath the body of the gnome. And again, we glued these socks down in such a manner that when we put this hot glue on that top part, that flat part of that little bit of plastic that we had, everything adheres to the bottom part of the gnome very, very well, because we made sure to really get a good adherence on that sock. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we are going to work on the hat now of this gnome, and we're using the second Purple Ladies sock. And we're bringing it over the top of the gnome and down over the shoulders. So we definitely want the hat to come down below the shoulders to sort of bring the arms in place. Remember I said if you made a big cut or a larger cut underneath the arms, it wouldn't matter. This is why, because the hat is going to keep everything in place. And now we're just going to figure out where our nose is going to go on the body here. And I'm just going to put some hot glue down, and then just checking to see where my little holes are on the side of that. I'm going to place it into place where I want it. And those braids now are going to be glued to the side of the nose to cover the hole. So nobody's going to see any holes, and she's going to look so, so cute. Once we get the two sides of the nose covered, we will then start to adjust the hat and work on the hat. Actually, I got ahead of myself. We're actually going to work on her braids now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in just a little piece of this lace white ribbon. It's so pretty. And we're going to tie it down on her braid, and then I'm just going to tack it in place with a little bit of hot glue, and we'll tie a cute little bow, and then we'll give her a little bit of a haircut. So we'll trim away some of that braid that is below the little bow where we put the hot glue, and now she's got a braid and she's got a little bit of a flare at the bottom. I think it's so adorable. We'll go ahead and finish that off on the second side, and then we'll work on the hat. And so this is where some of the fun comes in. I love making these adjustments because for me, this is when my gnome really comes to be. And so we're just going to bring the top sock down, which is now the hat, and we're going to adjust it around the nose and over the shoulders and around those braids, and just sort of bring everything together. And the next thing we want to do is add a little bit of embellishment. So I'm going to go ahead and break off the stem of this headband, and I'm going to peel off the backing on that little flower, and we're going to pull this green leaf off of there as well. And I'm going to just put some hot glue in there and sort of flatten it down onto itself so that it will sit flat against the back of the little flower. And I chose to go all purple, guys, but they had pink and I think another different color, maybe a green one. So if you wanted to go a different route with the color of your flower, you can definitely do that. But I knew that my hat needed a little more detail, so I decided to even bring in more of this white lace, and I want to definitely wrap it around so that I can get a little bit of a poof at the top of her hat. Oh my gosh, guys, when this comes together, it just makes me smile. So I go ahead and just knot that down. I don't even worry about any sort of a bow or anything at the top just yet, because you'll see what we do here. So we're going to bring that down around. Now we've already glued one strip down at the bottom, but I wanted two strips, one at the bottom and one just up a little bit. And now as we turn that around, it sort of twists around the hat there. And I did go ahead and make a separate bow that I'm going to hot glue there to the top of the hat. And oh my goodness, Sister Spring is looking so cute right now. So a little bit of hot glue now on this little leaf, and then also onto the flower, and we're going to attach that flower to the front of her hat to give her a little bit of bling and to bring in more of that spring flower feel. So as I said, we'll just finish that off. I've got that sort of sitting where that little bit of lace crosses down over the front of that hat, and it just turns out so cute. But I have one flower left, and as per usual, I have to add something to the back of my gnome. Even though you really won't see it, I know it's there and it makes me smile. So I went ahead and did that. I put a little flower on her behind. So now we're going to bring in those little buckets from the wedding section, and I'm going to use my little dauber sponge paintbrush, and I'm going to just sponge some of that paint around the edge of this little bucket. Now I could have gone and done the lower part of it as well, but in the end I decided not to. I thought I would just go ahead and put it here on the top. I want to give this a farmhouse bucket feel, and so I'm going to bring in one of these little stickers from Jot at the Dollar Tree, and I'm using the number 1, and I'm going to go ahead and apply it to the front of that little bucket. And so in the end, what I wind up with is a cute little farmhouse bucket for my gnome to hold. But you might be wondering what she's going to be holding in this, right? So let me just tell you, we are going to use this strip of burlap. Again, it is just a scrap piece, and I went ahead and measured up the front of it so that I could see how long it would need to be, and I folded it over so that I would have a double. And now I'm going to cut off a second piece at the same length. And what I'll do is drop some hot glue down into the bottom of the bucket and lay the first piece down in one way, and it doesn't matter if you go left, right, up, down, doesn't matter. Then we'll drop some more hot glue down in there after we pat that down, and we'll come back and we will go in the opposite direction. And again, if you are the type of person that wants everything to be even, then you would definitely find the center and push down into the bucket. I'm not going to worry about it. I do like that this is so random looking and, you know, not even. That's what I liked about it. So I took one of these greenery bushes from the Dollar Tree and I pulled it apart completely, didn't cut anything. And I'm just checking here to see how that's going to hang from her arm. And as you can see, we've got burlap there, and I'm just going to start dropping these into the bucket with some hot glue on each stem. So add some hot glue, push it down in there. That's going to keep the greenery in place, and then randomly fill it however it's pleasing to your eye. So you can keep some of this greenery attached to some of the lavender, or you can get rid of it. Either way, the goal is to have it look as though she is carrying a bucket of freshly picked spring flowers, and I absolutely adore how this turned out. I really like this greenery in particular. This was one of those unicorn finds for me. If you can't find this same greenery bush at your Dollar Tree, just go ahead and pick up something that is going to go with your spring decor. I am doing shades of purple because this will be on my shades of purple coffee bar, which will be dropping on the channel soon, so I hope you'll stay tuned for that. But I did go ahead and use some of the pink that came along with this, and I think it just really gave a really, really nice accent. Listen, while we're putting this together, I just want to say hey to my returning subscribers. Thanks so much for stopping by and checking out another video of mine. You guys mean the world to me, and I just really appreciate your support. If you're new here, please consider hitting subscribe and become a member of the Row Country family here on YouTube. I would love to have you. So that's what the bucket ends up looking like. And I just want to go ahead and give her something else to hold in her other hand. So I'm going to take one of these chalkboard signs that are made for bouquets, and I'm using my jelly roll pen, but you could use chalk if you wanted to. If you have a Cricut, you could go ahead and cut out a small saying, but this was small and I just wanted to use my own handwriting, and all it's going to say is welcome spring, because again, on my shades of purple coffee bar, that will be my spring coffee bar. I'm doing it for the season, not for the holiday, and this will be up all spring. So I just used that jelly roll, and I got to tell you guys, I was really impressed at how well that wrote on that little sign. So here's some really good close-ups, and please excuse my shakiness. This is what the bucket looks like. It's draped over the crook of her arm. It's got those purple and pink flowers and a little bit of greenery tucked inside and wrapped in that burlap, and I just love how that coordinates. You can see the detail on her little braids, and there is that cute little sign that she's holding. I just love the way that the hat turned out. I love the way that it's sort of pushed down over her nose, and yet the height from that bottle gives her height. And the detail of that ribbon just really, really, really finished it off for me. I'm just absolutely in love with her. Oh my gosh, and I hope you guys are too. Please guys, give me a thumbs up if you like today's video. If you have anything that you want to ask, or if you have any ideas for other videos that you would like to see, or other types of gnomes that you would like to see, please leave that in the comments down below. I love to interact with my subscribers, and I love to talk with you guys every time I post a video, and I appreciate you guys so much. Again, guys, it's a girl. Thanks for stopping by and checking out my Spring 2020 Country Farmhouse Gnome. It's mostly Dollar Tree, guys. While you're here, go ahead and watch another video, and don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already. Until next time, bye.